Alright, so here we are at Rusty's to discuss live rig setup and installation using like what you're doing. You're in a band, you get booked at a bar, you got to go set up and play. What are you bringing? Maybe you've not done this before. Myself here, I'm Chris, and beside me is Dwayne. Say hi, Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne.
Dwayne is another guitar player and a staff here at Rusty's, and we have a bit of live experience between us. So we're going to discuss things that you need with like your instrument, your setup, and knowing how to best implement it when you're doing a live show. So let's start with your guitar, right? So, what do you do, Dwayne, when you're packing up your guitar for a gig? Like, what are a couple of things you have in your gig bag?
I always have some tape and some pliers with strippers on them, winding tool with clippers on them, and I carry a soldering kit too.
Oh wow!
Not everybody does that.
No, sometimes I carry a travel multimeter, but it's kind of pointless without a soldering iron to repair anything.
Yeah, see, I don't carry a multimeter.
But yeah, generally though, at that point, if I'm not getting sound out of the guitar, I probably shouldn't have taken it out of the house, because that's something anticipating a gig, I'm going to pull out my guitars and check out. Like, I usually take two if I'm playing anywhere more than 30 minutes away from my house, because if one goes down, I want to be able to go. And I don't. As far as restringing, yeah, you can do that on the gig, but when you're playing as the lone guitar player in a band, there's no time to do that in the middle of a song.
Right.
So having a spare behind is good.
Spares never hurt.
But yeah, I always check them out, test them out, check volume knobs, tone knobs. Seems like silly stuff, but that's day-to-day maintenance. When we start having like a pot that's noisy or scratchy, let's go address that. Simple things like that will make your gigging a lot easier. Always have extra cables for guitar stuff, even though like nowadays I'm using new X wireless. I still bring a cable in case I need it, just because you never know when the battery's gonna.
Yes.
A charged battery may say, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore," or maybe you're getting interference. I've had that happen before too. Sax player had a wireless unit and they were getting crosstalk between the two of them, and I didn't feel like trying to find a different frequency, so I just went hardwire. It's a lot easier.
Right. But in the premise of your first show you've ever done, you only own one guitar and one amp, and it's the first time you've ever gone to a club. Don't forget your guitar strap. Always bring a guitar cable of your own, because the clubs don't provide guitar cables.
Right, and maybe bring an extra strap. I've done that too, because there's nothing worse than getting to a gig and realizing either your favorite strap that you had might have broken, which I've had that happen before, or you forgot to put it in the case, which I've had that happen before, and then be like, oh crud, and then I had a spare less than nicer strap in there, but it's an extra strap. Again, just kind of preparing for the for apocalypse every time you step out the door.
Yeah, and don't forget your power cord for your amp. Yeah. A lot of guys will leave them at clubs.
Yep,
I found
especially
more
the
IEC cables.
Yep.
Yeah, I found more of those cables for people's amps, and I got to text them the next day and be like, dude, you didn't take your power.
Yeah, so power is a big deal. If you have IECs, make sure you label it with your name, because it's really easy when you're a big, in a band with more than one or two people that have IEC cables. Those can get torn down, and in the teardown process, go home with somebody else.
A lot of bands travel with powered PA now, and that all has the same.
They all have IECs.
The same power cords.
It's really important to label your stuff so you know it's yours. That kind of gets us to the next part. So we've checked our guitar out. We got that ready to go. Maybe we put a new set of strings on a couple of days before we play the gig.
Picks in your pocket. Yeah,
picks in the pocket, picks in the gig bag. And then we get to the gig, though, so what else do we have? We got to pack our amp and any effects that we're going to use. So is there anything you do ritualistically for your amps and all that, Dwayne, when you're out gigging?
Yes, I have been doing it for enough decades to where I kind of have like an OCD checklist that I can't leave the house without. It's like touching the doorway on your, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I got to brush the lucky rock. No, I've always got my amp and my pedal board. I have a tuner and a OD1 distortion and a DD6 delay. So the TU2 Boss tuner powers the other two pedals, which is just a distortion and a delay. I use the distortion for rhythm. I use the delay on my leads and my cleans, and that's really all the effects that are necessary for me ever. I've tried lots and lots of different multi-effects pedals and chains and loops, and you got to have your delay in the loop and your gain in the front and your wah pedal first and all that stuff. And I know that's all really a thing, but for me, a good distortion with a good delay, and I can do 99% of the gigs. you know.
Right on. Yep. So there with your pedals, I'm assuming you're using an AC dedicated power unit for that, or do you have batteries for all your pedals?
No, I have a Snark on power supply on the TU2 pedal, and then that runs everybody else on it. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So that's a really good simple rig. I have a pedal board. It seems like for every occasion, depending on what I'm doing gig wise. Like the hip hop band has a big pedal board, Measure 16. It's got a bunch of stuff on it. Solo acoustic gigs, the Nano Plus with a looper and volume or vocal harmonizer, a bunch of other stuff just for that. Acoustic side stuff or sideman gigs. Just depends on what I'm doing, and I'll build out different boards for that. Most of my stuff has like the Strymon Zuma series powers on them, or I have used the Seox a lot, their DC5, which they don't make anymore, as a permanent power fixture on those boards. But I have those and then extra cables all the time, patching for those if I need them. And that goes generally in a gig bag that will either be clipped onto the mono cases that I have guitars in, or if I use my Reunion Blues double bag, the pedal board bag gets carried on its own in its own little bag, which is nice. And then you get to your amp now. So we've got the guitar and then all the signals we're going to do to change it. Amp wise, I play tube amps most of the time. I have for the past 20 plus years now. I don't carry spare tubes. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people I know do. I don't see why you would carry around a pocket full of eggs. That's kind of how I feel with tubes.
I agree. I don't carry spare tubes. That's just too much delicate stuff.
Right. I mean, and yes, I can bring an extra fuse, but generally if a fuse is blown, that generally means the amp is already has some other issue going on in it that you don't want to just chance that fuse holding while you're trying to play. But I carry things, gig bag savers, the simplifier, or any kind of IR loader, DI box type thing. Those are very helpful to have, and they don't take up a lot of space. You can throw it in a gig bag, and there's your insurance policy, unless you want to carry a spare amp in your car and that kind of thing. And some people do. If you like hauling that kind of stuff, go for it. For me, I tend to keep most of my amps in tip-top shape anyhow, so when I'm doing the dry run at the house of everything before I pack up for a gig, I'll check it and make sure it's all right as rain and ready to go. And if I have an issue, then I might not choose that amp for that week. Get it in tip-top order before I take it out.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. We can get into that some other time, but do you have any considerations for your amps when you're taking them out? Or?
So I stopped using amps for like probably close to 15 years. I was going direct because the 8-string universe, I've been playing 8-string for 13 years, and the 8-string universe direct has more control on the low end as far as how much saturation, and like tube amps are particularly quirky on F tuning and E tuning of 8-string guitars because 12-inch speakers just don't inherently sound good at that frequency. And so I just went with the crowd and played DI for a really long time, and the Boss ME stuff was what I always used because it's price conscious, but it also is every pedal that I've ever heard and ever used is based on all the Boss series stuff for the most part. And so it was very easy to have a battery powered box with a looper and a tuner built in, for $125 at every Guitar Center in the country. If it breaks, I can go to Guitar Center, buy an identical one that night, and pick patch 9 and go and play my 8-string on stage.
Right.
But I have gone back to tube amps since COVID. Everybody sat around trying to figure out their new dream rig, right? And so I got back into tube amps big time, and so now I have 2 Mavericks and a Supro, and I have a job here where I'm learning about hand-built amps and tubes.
So, I mean, you definitely don't have anything to sneeze at amp-wise. Those are great, reliable amplifiers there, both the Boogies and the Supros. And yeah, we do a lot of hand-wired boutique amps here at Rusty's, right? So there are lots of flavors for your amps, and that gets us to our next section here, the setup, your ins and outs. So again, it's really important when you are going to your first gig, that you practice setting and tearing down all your stuff, because generally, sometimes, especially if you're in a multi-band bill, like some clubs do that, where they put 3 or 4 bands on the same night. You've got to be able to get up there, set your stuff up, plug it up, turn it on, go play your set, cut it off, get off stage because you got another band coming in right behind you, right? So it's important to know, how long is it going to take me to do this? How elaborate is my setup? Some people don't do pedal boards. I don't know how people function like that, but you know what I mean? Like they'll carry a duffel bag full of pedals and cables, and then you just throw them on the floor and hook up all the spaghetti and then go. And that's cool if that works for you. For me, I'm too OCD to do that. And
I've seen some legendary bands that tour, and
the same thing.
The guy literally just strings them together with different wall warts and just plugs them into the nearest outlet, and then when there's problems, it's like, well, I can explain to you in really quick, like when they're like, I don't know what's wrong, I just point at the pile of wires that they've got, and I'm like, there's this.
Yeah, look at your ground loop you created. Anyway,
exactly.
Yes, I mean, so that's a big deal. But it kind of in a different direction with that. Amp-wise, it's really important to know like your limitations on the kind of amps you have. So we were talking about running direct versus running with a tube amp. Stage-wise, it's going to present two different issues. When you're running direct, you want to make sure you're getting a big fat mix of what you're hearing in your foldback or your monitor. You want that somewhat with an amp, but you don't need it as much because you have that amp giving you the sound typically behind you. But you should know, like, whatever amp you're carrying to the gig should hopefully be enough firepower for that gig.
Right.
No matter how good the mics are and how good the system is, we all have a level of comfort playing, right? So I'm going to bring up that situation because Dwayne happens to run sound at the world famous Windjammer. And one night I was in a band in there, and I came in with a little 4-watt Bad Cat Mini because I didn't feel like carrying a big amp to the gig. And Dwayne's like, yeah, I'll get that mic'd up, man, and we'll go. And before I even got it mic'd up, the other guitar player set up, and the bass player set up, and the drummer, and they started playing. And the nice, big, fat, juicy clean that I had when the amp was pretty much wide open prior to them setting up was now, like, they're non-discernible.
It was drowned out
it
by
had
the stage
evaporated by the stage volume completely. So, yes, we probably could have made it work, right? We could have put that in the back and mic'd it up and cranked it through my monitor. But it gets to the point I was making about limitations of that amp, right? Like, that's a great recording amp because of that, right? It creams up, it hits that sweet spot. But live, if you're not comfortable, I didn't feel like I had enough space in my sound, enough headroom to even make a Strat jangle. And if I can't have that, I'm not going to play the way that I know I'm capable of playing.
And also in a room like that with 500 people packed from wall to wall, your noise floor, you're competing with your noise floor. So my PA is having to do more work
to get it over
to get it audible over the audience and your stage volume from your band. With you guys had what, 7-piece?
Yeah,
the 8-piece that night.
I think so. Some crazy. Yeah. So needless to say, I made a trip out to my car, and I did have a backup amp that night because I wasn't sure what amp I needed. So I brought out my Headstrong Little King, which definitely got the job done. And that gets to another point. So that's only a 12-watt 112 amplifier, right? And,
Tube,
though, definitely. And I only ran it about 3, and it was amply loud enough on its own for me to monitor my sound without having you put a wedge up for me at all.
Yep.
And that's one of those things, is knowing, well, what's the limitations of that? So I did a blues gig a couple weekends ago and took a different amplifier that I knew would break up earlier. And we weren't miking anything, but it would be loud enough to be heard with the band. And that's a big deal because in order to get to that same sweet spot on, say, like my Germino Lead 35, we all would have been deaf, right? Like, I mean, because it's a great breakup, but to get there, we're pushing 100, 110 dB inside of a boat, and nobody really wants that on a boat.
No kidding.
So a 12-watt 5E3 clone will get the job done.
Right.
But know your limitations with your gear. If you have a Katana, I know those are loud enough, even the 50 watters, to do most shows as a solid state amplifier. But if you have a little practice 20-watt solid state amp and you're trying to play with a full band, I think it's probably not going to work. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of different variables to answer that question in the long, but in the short form, in smaller rooms with more intimate settings and less PA, you don't want an amp that's going to impose on your audience and your sound system.
Right, overpower everything.
Right, and there's a lot of guys that'll carry a half stack into a 200-person room and there's only 50 people in the crowd, and they've got it cranked like band practice volume.
Right.
And you can't hear this singer's in the PA system over the guy's stage volume. In some instances that, like you're talking about with the Windjammer, that amp sounds great turned up to that volume, but the people in the front audience are getting hit in the face with it.
Right, so we turn it to the wall.
We put a tilt, or we'll put it backwards, or point it at the drum riser. And you're one of the few guys that will automatically do that and be considerate of your front row. A lot of guys don't have the experience to do that, and I'll do that for them. I'll say, hey man, let's turn that towards the wall so you can keep it wide open and we don't tear people's faces off.
Yeah, because, well, that's the other thing too, right? So we only have a limited number of uses of our ears in some fashion, right? If we're sitting there taking 100, 120 dB full blast without earplugs, show after show after show after show, eventually we're going to lose some hearing in that
Absolutely.
range.
And it's the important hearing.
Right.
It's the 1K and up to 5K and 12. The top end goes away completely.
Right, and then when it's gone, you can tell because you can hear that in people's guitar tones. Like, whoa, they don't have any top end in their hearing because their guitar will sound really shrill and very lack dynamics and I don't know.
And the SPLs hurt.
Yeah, they do. They're painful. It's not a musical sound. So that's a big deal, though, to know that, and then know how to, I think, also function within your band and everybody get to the level on a setup super quick. You know, one of the most annoying things for me as a side guy is if I have to load in for a gig and we get set up and ready to go, and you know, people don't have their levels for their, you know, boost or drive set up correctly, or they, you know, we're taking time to do stuff that we should have already had prepared at home, so we just flip the switch and go. And listen to each other, right, as a band, and not be playing over while, you know, you might be sound checking the drums. You know, let's get that kick, let's get the snare. You know, this kind of gets us to a whole nother set of that. But big thing for all you greenhorns out there, young folks who've never played live shows, you know, when you've got a sound guy providing sound, you know, if they seem a little testy and irritated, it's because they're trying to get you set up and ready to go to do what you got to do. And do it painlessly, right, and get good levels, and it's hard to do if everybody's playing over everybody while they're trying to dial in the board, correct?
Yeah. Be focused and wait your turn, and you'll have a good experience with your sound man.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, you know, they're big musician fans, if not musicians themselves. So, you know, an ounce of patience goes a long way on everybody's part on that. But we can do our part by being prepared, and then also knowing, you know, I know some guitar players you've had come in there, their cabinets have already been mic'd up a million times, so they have a tape square, right, where they want you to put the microphone on it.
And they want a 57 in that tape square because that's what makes their amp sound right in the PA.
That's what they're used to, right?
Yes,
and so those are big deals, too. We get comfortable with the rigs that we have. We talk about knowing what it can and cannot do with our guitars and that we have. But we also need to know how we can use that within the context of the band and making it function, being considerate of our bandmates and the people we're working for at the club. You know, no bar people want to sit there and hear you mash out crap for an hour doing sound check. They want a 10-minute sound check and back off until it's time to go, right?
Yeah. I ask my acts when they're setting up not to make noise until we're ready to make noise as a group, because my bartenders are going to be patient with me for about 10 minutes. And if we haven't gotten a chorus sang out and the effects dialed in 10 minutes, I start getting glares and it starts to become an issue because they can't serve.
Right.
They can't serve if we're making noise for 30 minutes, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
right. It's got to be.
It's not a world tour. You don't have the venue to yourself for a sound check.
So let's talk about a different kind of venue, right? So let's go to, like, see what we're doing. There's a lot of breweries around Charleston, right? And I've done several of those. Some of them you're fortunate enough that they will have a PA that you can use. Sometimes you'll have a sound guy, like, you know, the Jammers. I know it's not a brewery, but they have their own sound guy, both inside and out. But you go to other places, some places downtown that I know you don't have your own reinforcement, right? So you've got to bring that. Well, let's say only the singer has like a little, you know, powered speaker. Well, now the band has to play within that, and that's a big deal. I think a lot of folks don't get with playing nowadays. I got spoiled in Nashville. Every gig I ever did in college and stuff, we'd show up at 4 to do sound check and load in. You know, and have the club without anybody in it, so you could be as loud as you wanted, and nobody cared. And you know, but you go set up, get your levels, run a couple of songs, you know, thank the sound guy, pack up your guitars, leave the amps where they are, come back at 9 o'clock, play the show at 10. You know, you're loading out at midnight, and everything was flawless and awesome. When I left Nashville and I got to the rest of America, like, oh yeah, we're gonna load in here, and you know, we need help. Who's got this for PA? I'm like, what? You don't have a PA?
Yeah.
But that's a big deal, right? So now here we are. Everybody has PAs, but there are people who don't buy big reinforcements. You know, I played a gig once where somebody had like a 4-channel mixer tower for a 5-piece band, and they were planning to play an outdoor like mall venue. That's not ample reinforcement, but
right,
you got to play within it, right?
Yep. And people that don't play are interested in hearing two things: the beat and the singer.
Yep.
And that if they can't hear the beat or they can't hear the singer, then it sounds like noise to them, and then they start to complain or they go somewhere else.
Oh yeah, they tune it out and don't want to be a part of it.
And then when you have a staff, like the big secret in the industry is that you need the staff to like you. Because if the staff is sending emails about how unentertaining you are, then it's not going to.
Yeah,
it's not going to fare well for you as an
probably
artist.
Not going to get booked
rebooked
again.
Exactly. Because in the music business, you don't get fired; you just don't get called back.
That's that's right.
The old adage.
Yeah, you get ghosted. It's the thing. But yeah, so you know when you're setting up, you want to make sure you get done in a timely manner. You're tuned up, ready to go. You don't have to be a kid in the classroom with the sound guy, but you do need to be respectful of their time and what they're giving you. As far as that kind of is a big thing. But so circling back around to the bringing your own PA in, right? So again, just drawing from my own experience, a lot of gigs I do in smaller rooms, especially in this town at a lot of the breweries, the only thing I put through the PA are going to be vocals or maybe a keyboard that doesn't have a dedicated keyboard amp, or even if they do, doing that so the keyboard can get over, because I know the guitar amp will carry, I know the bass is going to carry, even though the bass might be going through the PA too. And then the drums, we might put a kick in every now and then, but like I was in a brewery 2 Sundays ago, it was pouring rain, we were inside, there's no need to mic the kick in there. It's big, huge, reflective room, all it's going to do is muddy up our mix. And people are like, if your sound mix is right, because people are going to be standing close to the stage and close to you and talking.
Always
right?
tell people, when people say, how did we sound out front? And I'm like, did you see how the people were screaming and singing along? That's how you sounded out front, dude.
Yeah.
And in an environment like a concert venue like the Jammer, it's okay to be loud. And I mic everything. I mic every drum, every tom.
Right.
If you have an auxiliary percussionist, I might put 2 or 3 mics on him, not just one overhead, and I'm going to put a mic on every guitar. The bass is going to go into my subs. The kick is going to my subs. Like, the room is designed to be a concert venue. But the restaurant that I was a house guy at for 18 years out in Rivers Avenue is not. If I didn't turn the vocalist's effects down, or if I had too much bass in the subs, people would complain to the management. The management would come over and address it with me.
Right.
So it's like apples and oranges.
They are. Well, because one of them is really more of like a dining establishment that happens to have live music, and the other one's more of
a concert ticketed
venue.
Yes,
it's a venue.
Ticketed venue.
So
for
there's
that.
a huge difference for those.
Huge.
And that's why, to me, anytime like a sound guy's provided, there's a couple of venues around here where they actually have that, and it's awesome, and you don't have to put it in a rider like they're, oh hey, yeah, we got our own sound guy. Or a venue just opened up recently. I did a solo gig act. They had 2 towers and a 4 or 8 channel mixer there for you to use as a solo artist, which to me, I'm like, wow, I don't even have to carry that in. That's beautiful. It's one less thing to have to load in and load out and worry about. There's a whole other gaggle of problems that comes with that too, but we won't go into those in this episode. So let's talk the live rig. So we did address a lot of electric stuff. So what about these guys and girls who are out there and they have like acoustic stuff? Let's talk about that a little bit. When I'm playing, I know my acoustic stuff, again, I want fresh strings. My AA batteries and my Maton have got to be good. A good idea I learned from a bass friend of mine, Bert Ross. When he restrings his basses, he puts a piece of painter's tape in the back heel for the date of when he restrung them. And that's really smart. If you do that with a permanent marker for the batteries when you're putting them into your battery compartment of pedals, guitar, whatever, then hey, that's when I did these.
That's brilliant.
I used to do that with power tubes. Back when I only owned a Goodsell Super 17, which is now with the owner of Rusty's, I always dated the EL84 boxes when I changed the tubes out. So I knew, because I try to do a yearly run on power tubes. If an amp needs rebiasing after that, then cool, and to put the new ones in, I'll rebias it. But if it's not, if cabinet bias, I don't need to do that. I will just label it so I know how fresh they are. Because they nowadays, especially production tubes, they don't have the lifespan, in my opinion, that the vintage stuff used to have. And even that nowadays, if you buy a NOS, they're not always bulletproof. We can just put it that way.
I'd be willing to bet that the tubes in my Mesas are the same
probably the
tubes
original
that
ones that
from the
came out.
90s.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, because in the 20th century, shit was built to last.
Right. So we have a window there between like, I don't know, 80 and maybe 2000 when stuff was still pretty good. Past 20 years of tubes are not my favorite. But all right, back to our acoustic guys. I keep going down to different rabbit holes.
The
acoustic stuff. What matters to you
sound
as a sound
buster.
guy? The feedback buster.
Absolutely. Because even a good sound guy cannot get that 100 hertz to stop feeding back with
Right.
10,000 watts of PA under it. It's going to
if
hum.
you're cranking, especially if you're cranking
Yeah.
the acoustic up and really getting that top excited with the sympathetic vibrations of frequencies.
Absolutely.
You know.
And it's okay to turn your stuff up full blast. Like, a lot of people are scared to do that. Keyboard guys are the worst. They don't want to turn things all the way up. And I'm like, give me everything you got. I want to hear your horn patch at full blast. I'll put that where it's supposed to be. The rest is up to you.
Yeah.
And they don't believe me. I have a lot of guys, especially, well, we're staying on acoustic for this moment. So acoustic guys will bring their own pedal, their own processor, like an LR Bags or some sort of processing, and then they'll gas it up too much on the preamp, and it'll be clipping going into the preamp, and then they want to know why it sounds bad in their wedge.
Right, it's clipping through the signal because you're already sending too hot of a signal.
Yes, it's too hot. And even though mine is halfway, nowhere near amber, much less orange or red, you're giving me a junky signal because digital clipping is not the same thing as driving a preamp.
Right.
It's not the same
No,
thing.
it's a much harsher
it's
sound.
Gross. It's so gross.
Not a pleasant thing
it's
to hear.
cool to drive a preamp. And if you're using an analog preamp for an acoustic guitar on like an acoustic amp, and it sounds good with the preamp up because it gives you more attack, then we'll work with that. But your amp also probably has built-in compression and some sort of built-in effect to
or a
sweeten,
limiter to make it
a compression built in that doesn't say compression on it.
Smooth it out.
You don't know that that's a colored signal by the manufacturer.
Right.
Well, we do. Yeah. Sound guy can tell you right away when he hears your signal, well, that's got a compressor in it. It's got too much of 3K and too much of 100 hertz. Put your sound feedback buster in. You're solving a problem for us both. Yeah. You know, a lot of guys will think that the sound guy's against you. I see a lot of memes about it, and we're not against you. Like, we have the same goal. We want to make your band sound bad as shit tonight. Like, we want to make you sound like you're famous for the next 3 hours.
Right.
That's our goal. And if that's not your goal, then you're working against yourself.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I think, like acoustic stuff especially, picks seem to be the biggest commodity when I'm playing acoustic.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because more so than electric, like I can still kind of get away with volume and dynamics electrically if I drop a pick, but acoustically if I drop the pick, well, I kind of lost my engine, it's gone. Yeah, you can dig with your fingers, but it's not the same. Especially if you're doing strumming or clean picking. So that's something I definitely make sure I have plenty of for my live stuff when I get to do that. Extra batteries, we talked about that. As far as acoustic DIs go, there's a lot of great options out there. I think
there's a ton,
and they're pretty affordable. From our like New X Stageman series pedals, those are pretty useful. You can, like you're talking about the LR Bags, they make a whole series of different pedals that are acoustic DIs with different features and different feature sets.
A lot of the brands now will have an acoustic and a bass now. So like Katana has a bass channel, an acoustic channel, and all their electric channels. Right. And then you've got people like Nuix who's working with Chop Tones doing all those acoustic IRs, the impulse response of everything from a D18 to a J45 and how it's going to react, and you can use that to tailor your acoustic signal that you're inputting to whatever, the PA or your own monitor. Those are kind of cool things to worry about with acoustic stuff. I don't know, cabos if you need them, extra strings kind of, to me, seem like a normal part of that. If you go back to our blog on Rusty's coolguitars.com and look back in the first year of blog posting, I did a huge write-up about like what I pack for gig bag essentials, whether it's acoustic or electric. So definitely revisit that if you want to read up on some of that. So we're kind of, this is a really quick synopsis of all this live-wise, but we were asked by a customer of ours to
tell you guys what we brought in live, you know, how we set up and what we do. Another case in point, let's talk about like open mics or jams. You know, an open mic, if you're going, most of the time you know it's going to happen, right? So you can prepare your songs and get ready for that. If you need lyrics and that kind of stuff, then you should plan accordingly, right? Like carry an iPad holder or something, because they're probably not going to have one on site for you to use if you need that kind of technology. And then, you know, prepare your songs and make sure your instrument's in working order, so when you plug it up to their PA, it's ready to go.
Right.
I mean, because
it's embarrassing.
Yes.
To plug in and your guitar not to work. I've had it happen at an open mic night.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like an acoustic guy at a bar either. It was like a blues night that had been.
Wow, yeah.
It was a resident Sunday evening gig for these guys for like 10 or 20 years, and I brought my kids there, and like we've signed up and we got our 15-minute slot with a backup band of their people, and we're playing through other people's rigs, like pedal boards and tube amps mic'd up, and everything's good to go, wedges and mics, and we're nervous because he's never gotten up in front of a group and played with strangers, and as soon as he plugged in, there's no guitar, and it was like, thank the Lord he knew another kid that kind of was anticipating us being there, and that kid immediately jumped up and was like, here, use mine, and so we kind of kept it moving.
Right.
But it was one of those time stood still moments, and we can do a whole podcast on those.
Once you're on stage, there's no safety net. You've got to be prepared.
Time stands still when something goes wrong.
And even at an open mic like that, you know, because you got people generally hanging around, having a couple of drinks, they're enjoying the entertainment, whether the music act is good or bad, you know, they're still kind of having a good time with it.
And they're there to support, because a lot of them don't intend to pursue a band performance lifestyle.
It's one of their only ways to get our kind of experience. Hey, I can play live, and I enjoyed this, and I jam with some guys I met here, girls, and yeah, that's kind of seems to be the open mic thing, right? And there's decorum to that as much as anything else. Just like we were saying earlier, be kind and considerate to everybody you're running into, because you know they're trying to have a good time doing it too, and at the end of the day, we're all trying to make music together, in some form or fashion, and share that with each other. So hopefully that works for you guys. All right, let's see. So I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, jam situations. You talk about having other people's rigs. That does kind of fall to me into what we're prepared for live, right? Because, you know, sometimes you'll go out to a club or a bar and you run into your friend's band. They're playing. They're like, hey, man, come play. Sit in for a song. And, you know, when I'm afforded that opportunity, I don't go grimace at whatever I'm playing through, whether I love it or hate it. Even if it's, you know, I'm not a Floyd style guitar player, but if I have to play that, well, I know how much I have to change my technique to play it without being out of tune the whole song, right? Or, you know, like going and tweaking everything on somebody's pedal board because sounds, that's a total no-no, right?
Yeah, that's like, faux pas. You can't touch the guy's stuff. He's being nice enough to let you plug into it. Just hit the chords. And
just go play and
play your part.
Make the best of what you got.
High five some people.
Yeah, right? Because I mean, it's a totally different bag. Especially, you know, good way to cut your teeth. I used to be in a bunch of blues bands, or in a blues band in Virginia. We played a ton of those blues challenges, right? Yeah. Well, you don't bring your backline; they provide it, and you got to go with whatever they have. You're welcome to bring a pedal board if you want, but generally with that kind of thing, the purist idea is guitar cable amp, right? Yep. So that's where you've got to
plug straight in.
Yes, and that's what we talk about, knowing your limitations. We're going to do another episode here in the future about basic guitar stuff, set necks versus bolt-ons. But to kind of, again, short answer that, I know if that guy hands me a Strat and it's like a twin, I'm not going to be getting a lot of dirty out of that unless he's got something on a board. Cause
you're not doing any screaming.
There's
guitar
if I hit that bridge pickup on there, we're going to be pulling the top into your hearing out for the rest of the evening. Yes, it's a smashing sound. You know, whereas if they hand you, you know, a Les Paul and a Marshall, well, you're not going to get any Nile Rodgers out of that. You can try. You're going to get, you know, you might be able to have a reasonable facsimile if you play a certain way, but you know that knowing what rig you're playing through and learning how to use them is kind of a big deal, I think. You know, talk about limitations on amps. I'm going to circle back to that. Like, I know a deluxe style amp isn't going to be, but so clean. We talked about it yesterday. It's like hairy clean at best, right?
That's my new favorite term.
So, you know, you get a Stratotelli in there, you get that juicy kind of broken up Keith thing going on. And then you put something with humbuckers in there, and now it's suddenly Cream City, and you've really got to vary your attack to clean it up.
Yeah,
right?
Because when you dig in, it gets all hairy, like bristly,
and gets that
and
texture on the edge of the note, which that's cool stuff we want. But on the flip side, you know, like
a snarl. Yeah,
the snarl. But when I'm playing, you know, like a jazz gig, the last thing I want is that big fat hairy note. For most of the jazz stuff I want to do, I want to hear a big fat fundamental from a humbucker, but in a very clean kind of round sound, and that's where, like, you know, the Little King is perfect for that kind of thing.
Don't get me started on that amp.
Yeah, I know. Right, it's great,
I have
perfect
no
amplifier.
reason to spend more money on amps, but I have plenty of reason to buy that one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the perfect gigging amp because you have. I'm a reverb junkie. You know, grew up loving the Ventures and surf music, and then all of my favorite artists at some point or another had reverb on their sound. Yeah. Even if it's not surfing, it's just that nice ambiance that we love, and it's a very good safety net. And then tremolo, which is kind of fun to have on there. The Biosphere is really nice, but that amp is perfect because you can overdrive it and you can get a cool broken up sound out of it as well with that reverb into it that has its own color and flavor. Is it the same as, say, the Germino Lead 35 or you know, Lead 55 when it breaks up? Not at all. They're completely different gain characters, right? But that's knowing those limitations of, well, this amp can do this amp can do that. You know, not justifying to anyone why you need to have 10 different amps.
Hendrix is the only guy that's like famous for a Strat through a Marshall, really, though, right? And Yngwie, but
yeah, and then you got
but most guys are Strats through like the Fender.
Yeah, through like Tweed Deluxe stuff.
Tweeds,
I mean, like,
or Blackface,
in the past 30
years
has pretty much been like a Bassman style clone, right? With his, or high powered twin with a Strat. Yep. Even though his, kind of is on steroids, he's got that 20 dB kick on the bridge pickup, on the toe knob. So
and like Robert Cray, he runs the Matchless pair and
the Clubmans and
something in the middle.
And I think a twin in the middle or something like that.
Yeah.
Or super reverb.
But there's not a lot of. There's not a legacy of Strats through Marshalls.
No.
It's Marshalls. It's Les Paul through Marshalls.
Blackmore. Well, and then Jay Mashkus, or how do you say his name, right? Dinosaur Jr. is big into jazz masters through like Marshalls with tubs, you know, the 8x10 or 8x12s, which massive walls of sound.
Yeah.
Again, that's awesome to be able to play like that. Venues nowadays don't really seem to allow for that, in my opinion.
And amps are loud again.
They are.
They're louder than they've been. At least in the club circuit, they're louder than they've been in the last 20 years. A lot of guys stuck with modeling and practice amps on stage because it was just convenient at that volume for me to do all the work with the PA system. But guitar amps and pedals and vintage and analog have become the state of the art again. People are getting tired of fucking with software and computers and things, and it's so much easier to plug into. Even like my Supro, that's a $500, $600 brand new tube amp with a gain channel, a boost, a reverb, a loop. Like, that's more tube amp than you could get in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
on that with that many features in a tube amp. That was a $1,200 amp back then. It's a $3,000 amp now.
Yeah,
and it's you can get it brand new from us for $699 or whatever. Excuse me. And it's a great sounding amp. And it would take me hours, days, weeks to dial in any of my digital stuff to get close to what that Supro sounds like.
Right, when you just hit the power switch and go.
And it's not even my hot rod amp.
Right.
It's like my, hey man, I don't feel like it today amp. It weighs 5 pounds. It sounds fucking incredible. It's louder than shit. Like, I can turn it up halfway, and I'm louder than all the drummers that I know. I can play. I don't have to have a PA system or a wedge or ears to go jam with an acoustic drum kit.
Yeah.
And I play metal. And for me to be able to walk in with a Supro and stick it on a stool by his hi-hat and turn it to 4, and he's like killing it with the cymbals, and I can hear every note of my rhythm and my lead with no PA, that's a good amp.
Yeah.
And it would take me a powered wedge and 2 hours of dialing in and saving the digital whatever.
Well, and that kind of gets into that. One of the big digital and analog discussions, at least coming from Fractal Land, which, you know, I was a card-carrying member for a while on that, with the FM3, and before that the AX8, and you know, those are really cool rigs. It's nice to have all the tones at your fingertips. Great to be able to plug into a computer and record. and not really worry too much about level stuff. You can get all that dialed in pretty quickly. But live wise, you know, if it's not EQ'd right, and if you don't really have your patches set where they need to be level, we were talking about that earlier. When you go in live, if you're not getting that reaction from the monitor wedge that makes you feel inspired to play, and you're fighting it, it totally changes your dynamic in playing, because that comfort level you had is no longer there, right? Yep. And that was my biggest problem with it. And never mind, a couple of times, you know, I would carry out. I did an event one time in Georgia last year where I had a wedge in front of me that was strictly to monitor my FM3, and a 65 watt solid state amp behind me with it. And I was told by the guitar player, singer, the other guy in the band at the end of the night, "Oh, I didn't hear any of your leads. You're too quiet." And I'm like, "What?" Because I heard everything I did. But, like, you know, we're on the same stage and dude couldn't even hear what I was doing. Now, is it because my buddy's playing too loud, or was it because that rig wasn't loud enough? But that speaks to that not having the effect. Whereas, like, if I play a tube rig with him, and I have, like, my boost pedal, because I always have a boost on my board most of the time. If there's anything I carry as a kind of like Swiss Army knife for my pedal board, it's always like the Super Sweeter EP booster. Those are my favorite, like, little boost pedals, just because they put a little bit extra heat in there and fatten out that sound, and it's enough. It's the sugar on it. But yeah, with that kind of rig, that same guy's like, "Oh, dude, I could hear all your solos great tonight. They were wonderful," you know. And it's interesting to me that there's such a big difference in there, but it is. And I know feel-wise, like, for me, that amp in the room thing, and I've owned freaking all the great FR cabinets that they have for guitar, they still don't have that impact to me that an amplifier does, even if it's a 5 watt tube amp or a 50 watt tube amp. Those they have a presence about them that you don't get, in my opinion, from modeling.
I agree, and that's caused by the true waveform. The tube amp has the true waveform. It has the natural curve of the top and the natural curve of the bottom, and that's the cream you're talking about. When they changed it to solid state in the late 70s, early 70s, and then the brands like PV came along, and they really, like, mass-produced solid state equipment that was sufficient, cheaper, faster, cooler. It didn't heat up, and fucking you didn't have to have, like, and like, and then PA was stupid heavy, and you had to have tons and tons of people and tons of gear and tons of trucks to move all the PA. So then now all you got to do is carry a little solid state amp, and it's less and less and less, and then your ears get attuned to it. It's like when iPods came out, and then, like, all of a sudden quantity over quality, and then tone took a dive, and it was like, "Oh, that's cool enough, go with it." And then we forgot what good tone really sounded like. And I have an example of that. I got hired to do a sound gig in a little restaurant out in Somerville, and I normally carry, like, my XR18 X Air as my emergency. I call it the Ghost Trap. It's 16 in, 8 out. I can build an entire PA system scene in 15 minutes, and it's going to crush the room. I use the shit out of this thing. It's my ear rig for every show, and my Pro Tools interface. I mean, I swear by this machine. But another guy had it, and so I had to take my big 40-channel analog console, and I had to have Devin, my son, help me throw it in the truck and ride out there with me and two-man it into the club and put it at their front of house booth, and then I had to hard patch all their whole snake patch and everything into this thing, and it was like the biggest pain in the ass. But I had a really awesome drummer on stage with a really great kit with brand new heads, and he had it tuned like it was like an industry level professional drummer on stage, and I had a full mic pack with a 16x16 deck, subs, the whole shit, right? Man, I had no effects, no compressors, no gates, no anything, and just the preamps and the EQs on that analog British board made their PA twice as loud. And we were the opening band. The headliner had their own self-contained digital rack and all their effects and everything with them, and the tone of this three-piece band that opened was like straight out of the 1980s, dude. Like, everything was just punchy and strong and just sweet and powerful, and I mean, it was great. And I was like, the whole room just came alive through that console, and I was like, God damn, man, because there was no digital in between it. It was straight from my console through the EQs into the power amps.
Yeah, I mean,
like
we could probably go down the rabbit hole of conversion and all that, and then impulse responses and how they're supposed to be X, Y, Z, but at the end of the day, you know, we all have our preferences too. It's just like same as guitars and amps and picks and string sizes, all that. Everybody has their own flavor that works for them. But yeah, I'm a big proponent in analog stuff. All right, so we probably went down a little farther than we needed to on the live rig thing here, but there's a lot to learn on it. We will be having future discussions about this. This was kind of a good introductory class on live rig setting up. So let's kind of sum it up, guys. Make sure you check your instrument stuff. You're ready to go. Your songs are prepared, blah, blah, blah. Know your rig. Yeah. Right? No
fresh strings, picks in your pocket.
Yeah, if you're only carrying a couple
guitar
pedals,
cables that don't scratch and pop and crackle.
Right. Make sure you have plenty of clean power, good batteries for whatever you need. If you're an active pickup guy in an electric guitar, always have a spare 9-volt, and a Phillips head screwdriver. You don't need a big one; just put one in your game.
And that's not just you EMG metal guys. That's your acoustic piezo guys. That's your active bass guitar guys. Like anybody that has to have a 9-volt in your guitar, you should have a pocket full of 9 volts in your guitar bag. Like
and a tool to open up the thing. So I'm just saying it. So my P bass light that I use for my bass gigs has an active preamp for the treble and bass knobs. Now the pickups are not active, but the preamp is for those. So I have to have a 9-volt in it. Well, the only place that's located is inside the back of the cavity. How do you get in the cavity? You've got to take that Phillips head to take it off. Well, if you're at a gig and you don't have a Phillips head, which I don't know, last time I was at like Kiowa doing a wedding gig, they didn't have spare Phillips heads laying around. So it's important to have said tool with you and close reach distance, because you know if that battery died in the middle of the show, I can't go stop the wedding to go
ask
run
the
out to
bride's
my car.
dad for a screwdriver.
Hey, can I get your screwdriver and open this up so I can fix this? You know, an ounce of prevention goes a mile. So, like, you know, I'm not saying you got to restring every show, but some people are like that. I don't. I play them till they break most of the time. But yeah, always have spare batteries. Know your amp. Know what kind of volume you can get your great amp sounds out of too, right? Because we were just talking about that. Like, certain amps sound really good at a certain threshold and they feel like they're present, and then if you turn them down too much it might neuter up the sound, but you may have to play that way at a venue. So it's important to know, well, okay, if I've got to drop my volume on my amp and lower that output to accommodate the venue, do I have another way to get to like that higher gain sound that I want, or still have the clean headroom I want? You've got to be able to know your rig, and the only person that can do that for yourself is you, right?
Yep. Sitting
down, practicing with your bandmates, practicing on your own, really getting to know the rig. And you know, one of the bigger things I think a lot of people don't mess around with, not everybody has a wireless, but get the longest cable you can and walk as far away from your amp as you can while you're playing it, because there's a huge difference in sound 3 feet from the amp as opposed to 20 feet from the amp.
Yes, and when you're EQing your guitar tone, sit down on the floor in front of the speaker where a microphone would be, or put it up on a table and sit in front of the speaker where the microphone would be. Don't stand at where it's at your knee and try to make it sound good to you, because I promise anything that's in front of that cabinet is going to hate your guts.
Yeah, so I mean that's some pretty basic stuff there for live rigs and setting them up. Acoustic people, like we talked about, make sure you got your spare batteries and capos, straps, whatever else you need. All right, well, is there anything else you want to talk about with that, Dwayne, or should
you can find all of those things that you'll need on stage at rustyscoolguitars.com.
That's correct. We've got everything: guitars, stands, capos, tuners, direct boxes, feedback busters. We don't sell acoustic pickups, but we could probably get you one if you wanted them. But check us out, rustyscoolguitars.com, or on Instagram. We are under Rusty's Cool Guitars Amps. Yeah, we lost our login to the original one, so we had to go and like find all 2,000 people and get them to join our new account when we reopened it.
We're glad that they did. Yes. I did not know that.
It was what a headache. Anyway, we thank you for your support. Y'all take care, and we'll be in touch.
And I'm going to have you on the Sound Guy podcast to talk more about the production side of guitar rigs.
Sweet. Right on. Fun.
Absolutely.
Fun. Yeah. So thanks for your time, Dwayne.
Thank you.
Rusty fans and Rustomers, we will talk to you later.
Later.